Gaxthor stared at his useless hand, then at Miller with rage and confusion. "Finish it," he roared. "Take your killing stroke." Miller remained on one knee, blood staining his uniform, Walsh's medal clutched in his left hand. "I didn't challenge you to kill you, Commander. I challenged you to teach you respect." The Krelaxian warrior lunged forward with his 3 remaining armed limbs. Miller rolled aside, his movements slower now as his wound took its toll. He came up behind Gaxthor, and with precision, struck another tendon point on the warrior's upper left arm. A second blade clattered to the blue sand. The watching crowd had gone from shocked silence to excited whispers. No one had ever seen Gaxthor so skillfully countered. "You mock me by refusing to kill," Gaxthor snarled, turning to face Miller again. "End this properly. The way you ended Walsh's memorial," Miller asked, his voice carrying across the arena. With disrespect. Gaxthor charged again. Despite 2 disabled arms, he was still deadly with the remaining blades. Miller ducked under one swing but caught a glancing blow from the other across his back. He stumbled forward, nearly falling. The Krelaxian pressed his advantage, raising his blade for a killing stroke. At the last possible moment, Miller twisted aside and drove his knife upward, catching exactly between the armor plates at Gaxthor's shoulder joint. A third blade fell. Miller stood back, breathing hard, his uniform now stained with blood in several places. "Yield," he said simply. "This doesn't need to end in death." Gaxthor still had 1 blade and his natural strength. He could likely still kill the wounded human, but now uncertainty showed in his yellow eyes. "Humans," Miller said, loud enough for all to hear, "believe the true measure of a warrior isn't just who they kill, but who they save, who they protect, who they honor." He held up Walsh's medal again. Peter Walsh was a warrior by our standards, not because he killed, but because he saved. Gaxthor charged one final time, his remaining blade aimed at Miller's heart. With his last strength, Miller sidestepped and caught Gaxthor's arm in a lock that used the Krelaxian's own momentum against him. The knife came to rest against Gaxthor's throat, at the one spot not protected by natural armor or metal plate. The arena went completely silent. Miller held the position, knife drawing a tiny bead of blood from Gaxthor's throat, technically first blood in a vital area. By Confederation law, Miller could claim victory. "Yield," Miller said again, quietly. For a long moment, they stood frozen in tableau. Then, slowly, Gaxthor dropped his final blade. "I yield," the Krelaxian warrior said, the words clearly unfamiliar and difficult. Miller stepped back, lowering his knife. He swayed slightly from blood loss but remained standing. "The challenge is complete," he announced formally. Medical teams rushed forward as Thor declared Miller the victor. Dr. Young reached Miller first, already applying pressure to his wounds. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," she muttered. "Maybe both," Miller admitted, finally allowing himself to be eased onto a stretcher. 3 days later, Miller sat in the Armstrongs' meeting room, his wounds healing. The door chimed, and Zivkar entered, followed by a subdued Gaxthor. "Commander," Miller acknowledged, rising carefully to his feet. Gaxthor looked different. His posture had changed, less aggressive, more thoughtful. "Captain Miller, I have come to understand something." Zivkar handed Gaxthor a small package. The warrior opened it, revealing Walsh's medal, now mounted on a Krelaxian honor plaque. "Your engineer Walsh," Gaxthor said slowly, "died saving others. In my culture, we honor those who die bringing death to enemies. In yours, you honor those who bring life to friends." He placed the plaque on the table. I was wrong to laugh. I did not understand. Miller looked at the plaque, then at Gaxthor. "And now? Now I wish to learn," Gaxthor said. "About humans, about how strength can be measured in ways I have not considered." 1 year later, a new tradition began in the Confederation. A joint human Krelaxian honor guard, led by Commander Gaxthor himself, held a ceremony remembering fallen warriors of all species. They recited names, those who died in glorious battle and those who died saving others. Engineer Peter Walsh's name was always spoken first, by Gaxthor personally. The legendary warrior who had never known defeat had finally learned that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from conquering an enemy, but from understanding them. The combat arena aboard the Confederation flagship was a perfect circle, 30 meters across. The floor was covered in blue sand, imported from ancient Krelaxian battlegrounds. High above, viewing platforms held representatives from every Confederation species, all eager to witness the unprecedented challenge. Miller stood at one entrance in his formal Earth Navy dress uniform. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapons except a simple combat knife at his belt. Walsh's service medal was pinned to his chest. Lieutenant Clark stood beside him. "Last chance to back out, sir." "Not going to happen," Miller replied. "How do I look?" "Like a human about to fight a walking tank," Clark said honestly, "but a very determined one." Across the arena, Gaxthor entered wearing full ceremonial combat armor. Metal plates covered his torso and limbs. Blades of varying lengths were attached to each of his 4 arms, his yellow eyes fixed on Miller with predatory focus. The chief Confederation diplomat, a tall, slender being named Exor, floated to the center of the arena. "This challenge will proceed according to ancient laws. Combat ends only with first blood from a vital area, formal surrender, or death." Murmurs spread through the watching crowd. First blood from a minor wound would not end the fight. Only a potentially lethal injury would count if the wounded fighter survived. "The challenged party may select the weapons," Hiller continued. Gaxthor raised his upper arms. "I choose blade combat, as is traditional for Krelaxian warriors." Miller nodded, his expression calm. "The challenging party may select the terms of victory," Gaxthor added. Miller's voice carried clearly across the arena. "Standard terms, as stated." Gaxthor seemed surprised, perhaps expecting the human to seek some advantage through unusual terms. His mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "Combatants, enter the circle," Gaxthor commanded, then quickly retreated to the safety of the viewing platforms. Miller walked forward steadily, stopping at the center of the arena. Gaxthor approached with heavy, confident steps, towering over the human captain. "Your engineer died poorly," Gaxthor said quietly, for Miller's ears only. "You will die the same way." Miller didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, he reached up and unpinned Walsh's medal from his uniform. He held it up so the lights caught it, making sure everyone could see. "This belonged to the man you mocked," Miller said, his voice carrying to the observers. "Peter Walsh. Father, friend, hero." Then Miller did something unexpected. He knelt and pressed the medal into the blue sand at the exact center of the arena. A confused murmur went through the crowd. Gaxthor tilted his head, uncertain of this ritual. "Begin," Thor called from above. Gaxthor immediately swung 2 of his bladed arms in a scissors motion that would have taken Miller's head if he hadn't rolled backward. The human came up in a fighting stance, knife now in hand. "You cannot win," Gaxthor said, advancing steadily. "Accept your death with dignity." Miller circled carefully, keeping his distance. The Krelaxian was faster, stronger, with 4 arms to Miller's 2. Direct combat would end quickly. Miller feinted left, then darted right as Gaxthor lunged. The move brought him within striking distance, and his knife scored a line across one of Gaxthor's lower arms. A shallow cut, nothing close to a vital area. The crowd gasped. No one had drawn Gaxthor's blood in years. The Krelaxian warrior growled, attacking with renewed fury. Miller barely avoided the flurry of blades, suffering a cut to his shoulder as he spun away. "First blood to you," Miller acknowledged, breathing hard, but not in a vital area. For 10 minutes they danced across the blue sand. Miller couldn't match Gaxthor's strength, but he was quicker than the Krelaxian expected, more agile in his movements. Still, It couldn't last. Eventually, Gaxthor's blade caught Miller along the ribs, tearing his uniform and drawing a line of red. The human stumbled, dropping to one knee beside Walsh's metal in the sand. Gaxthor moved in for the kill, all 4 blades ready. Now you die, human, like your weak engineer. Miller looked up, blood seeping through his uniform. Peter Walsh saved 16 lives. He died so others could live. With surprising speed, Miller grabbed Walsh's metal from the sand and lunged upward. His knife didn't strike Gaxthor's body. Instead, it caught precisely between armor plates on a Krelaxian's lower right arm, severing tendons. The blade fell from Gaxthor's suddenly useless hand. The crowd went silent in shock. Miller had deliberately targeted a disabling, not killing, blow. Captain Miller sat alone in his quarters, studying footage of Krelaxian combat techniques on his datapad. The images showed Gaxthor moving with surprising speed for his size, all 4 arms wielding different weapons with deadly precision. In the last 17 combat challenges, no opponent had lasted more than 3 minutes. A chime sounded at his door. "Enter," Miller called, not looking up. Lieutenant Clark and Sergeant Gonzalez walked in, their faces grim. "The Confederation Council has confirmed the challenge," Clark reported. "Combat is scheduled for tomorrow at 1400 hours aboard the Confederation flagship. They're hoping you'll back down," Gonzalez added. "Apparently no one has ever challenged Gaxthor and lived to tell about it." Miller set down the datapad. "I won't back down. Walsh deserves better than mockery at his memorial." "Sir," Gonzalez said, "I've been studying Krelaxian physiology. Their muscle density is 3 times that of humans. Their reaction time is faster. Their skeleton has metal deposits that make their bones nearly unbreakable." "I know," Miller said quietly. "Then why?" "Because some things matter more than winning," Miller cut her off. "The way we honor our dead. The respect we show for sacrifice. If I die tomorrow, every species in the Confederation will know that humans don't let insults to our fallen stand." Clark looked at his captain with new understanding. "This isn't about beating Gaxthor. It's about showing who we are." "Yes," Miller nodded, "though I'd still prefer to survive the experience." Meanwhile, aboard the Confederation flagship, Gaxthor sharpened his ceremonial blades in his quarters. The door slid open as Zivkar entered, followed by Lisa Bennett. "The human female wishes to speak with you," Zivkar announced. Gaxthor didn't look up from his task. "About the challenge. It is too late to withdraw." "About Peter Walsh," Bennett said. "The man whose memorial you disrupted." This caught Gaxthor's attention. He set down his blade and turned to face her, the engineer who died from his wounds. "What about him?" Bennett activated a small projector she carried. An image appeared showing Walsh with 2 young females, all 3 smiling widely. "These are his daughters, Alice, age 12, and Emma, age 9. Gaxthor looked at the image with mild curiosity. "Offspring. Many warriors have them. On Earth," Bennett continued, "Walsh volunteered at a school teaching children about engineering. He helped build homes for people who lost theirs in natural disasters. He wrote poetry in his spare time. These things do not matter in combat," Gaxthor said dismissively. "They matter to us," Bennett replied. "They're why we honor him. Not just for how he died, but for how he lived." Zivkar had been studying the images with more interest than his commander. "Your species values these contributions outside of battle." "We do," Bennett confirmed. "A person's worth isn't measured only by their combat skills." Gaxthor made a rumbling sound in his chest. "A warrior is defined by combat, nothing else." "Captain Miller doesn't see it that way," Bennett said, her voice steady. "And tomorrow he's willing to die to prove it." After Bennett left, Zivkar remained. "Commander, I have been researching human combat techniques. They are unorthodox. Primitive," Gaxthor corrected. "Their bodies are weak, their reflexes slow. Yet they defeated the Nexari when many stronger species failed, Zivkar pointed out. Perhaps there is something we do not understand about them. That night, Miller received a visit from Dr. Young. She carried a small metal case. "I thought you might want this," she said, placing it on his desk. Inside was a small Earth Navy medallion. It was Walsh's, his service medal. Miller picked it up carefully. "Thank you. The crew is behind you," Young said, "but we prefer you come back alive." Miller smiled slightly. "That's my plan." In the quiet hours before the challenge, Miller studied ancient texts about Krelaxian culture that Clark had discovered. He found something interesting, a point of honor in their combat traditions that might give him an edge, not through strength, but through understanding. Across the fleet, bets were placed, messages sent. No one gave the human captain any chance of survival. Yet something in Miller's calm determination made some observers wonder if Gaxthor might, for the first time, face a challenge he didn't fully understand. The observation deck went completely silent. The soft hum of the ship's engines seemed suddenly loud in the stillness. Captain Miller turned slowly to face Gaxthor, his expression like stone. Sergeant Gonzalez moved first, stepping forward with her fists clenched. "You dare laugh at our memorial service?" Gaxthor seemed genuinely confused by the human's reaction. "Your engineer died from wounds sustained while hiding behind machinery. Where is the glory in that? You celebrate weakness." The room erupted in angry voices. Dr. Young moved to Gonzalez's side, placing a restraining hand on her arm even as her own face flushed with anger. "He saved 16 crew members," Young said, her voice tight with control. "He manually sealed a breach that would have killed everyone in that section." Gaxthor's upper shoulders rose in what humans now recognized as a dismissive shrug. A Krelaxian warrior would have prevented the breach through proper combat. "Your tactics led to this inglorious death." Miller raised his hand, and the angry voices fell quiet. He stepped away from Walsh's body and approached Gaxthor directly. "Commander Gaxthor," Miller said, each word precise and cold, "you have disrespected a fallen hero of Earth's Navy." "I speak truth," Gaxthor replied. "In Krelaxian culture, dying from wounds is shameful. Warriors seek glorious death in direct combat, not slow failure of medical treatment." Miller's eyes never left Gaxthor's face. "I formally challenge you to combat, under Confederation law." A collective gasp went through the room. Even Zivkar looked shocked, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "Captain," Lieutenant Clark warned quietly, "Confederation challenges are to the death." "I'm aware," Miller said, not turning around. Gaxthor stared down at the human captain. Then his mouth split into what might have been a smile. "You challenge me, the victor of the Orion Wars, the destroyer of the Drulkan fleet." "I do," Miller confirmed, "unless you wish to formally apologize for disrespecting Engineer Walsh and his sacrifice." The Krelaxian warrior drew himself up to his full height, nearly 9 feet tall compared to Miller's 6. His 4 arms spread slightly, an unconscious display of his physical superiority. "No human has ever defeated a Krelaxian in formal combat," Gaxthor said. "I accept your challenge. Perhaps humans will learn proper respect when I display your skull in the Hall of Warriors." Lisa Bennett stepped forward, her recorder in hand. "For the official record, the challenge has been issued and accepted. According to Confederation law, combat must occur within 3 standard days. The Confederation Council must be notified immediately." Zivkar moved to Gaxthor's side, speaking rapidly in their native language. The universal translators caught only fragments, unprecedented and diplomatic incident among them. Gaxthor silenced his aide with a sharp gesture. The human issued challenge. I accepted. It is done. The ceremony for Engineer Walsh will continue without interruption, Miller said, turning his back on Gaxthor to return to his position. Commander, you are dismissed from this service. For a moment, it seemed Gaxthor might refuse to leave. Then, with a sound like grinding stones, He turned and stalked from the observation deck, Zivkar hurrying after him. When the doors closed behind them, Miller resumed the ceremony, his voice steady as he completed Walsh's eulogy. The platform bearing Walsh's body moved slowly into the launch tube. With a silent flash of light, it was propelled into space, becoming a tiny bright star among the millions already shining. After the ceremony, Clark caught up with Miller in the corridor. "Frank, what are you doing?" Thor has never lost a combat challenge. He's killed 43 opponents in ritual combat alone. He laughed at Peter's sacrifice. Miller said simply, "Some things can't stand." "It's cultural," Bennett said, joining them. "In Krelaxian society, dying of wounds is considered dishonorable. Their warriors either win or die fighting." "Then it's time they learned about human culture," Miller replied. "And what happens when you mock our fallen?" News of the challenge spread through the Confederation fleet like wildfire. Within hours, the Council had called an emergency session. No human had ever challenged a Krelaxian commander, let alone one of Gaxthor's legendary status. Smoke filled the corridor leading to engineering. Emergency lights flashed red against the metal walls as Miller and Gaxthor pushed forward. They found Dr. Olivia Young already there, her medical team working frantically around a figure on the floor. "Status," Miller demanded, kneeling beside them. Dr. Young looked up, her face grim. "It's Walsh. He stayed behind to manually seal the breach. The explosion caught him before he could reach shelter." Engineer Peter Walsh lay on his back, his uniform burned and torn. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. Blood seeped through makeshift bandages across his chest and side. "The ship?" Walsh asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Safe," Miller assured him. "You did it, Peter. You saved everyone in engineering." Walsh attempted a smile, wincing with the effort. "Good. That's good." Dr. Young pressed a hypospray against Walsh's neck. "I need to get him to medical bay now, Captain." As the medical team carefully lifted Walsh onto a stretcher, Gaxthor stood back, watching with curious detachment. He had seen many warriors fall in battle before. It was the natural order of things. "He will not survive," Gaxthor stated flatly. Miller's head snapped up, his eyes hard. "Dr. Young is the best medical officer in the fleet. His wounds are extensive," Gaxthor continued. "A Krelaxian would already be dead. I am surprised the human still speaks." "We're tougher than we look," Miller said, following as the medical team rushed Walsh toward sickbay. Hours passed. The Armstrong had rejoined the Confederation fleet after the skirmish. The Nexari scouts had been captured, and an investigation was underway to determine why they had been in Confederation space. In the medical bay, crew members came in small groups. They spoke quietly to Walsh, held his hand, or simply stood nearby in silent support. Gaxthor observed it all from the corridor, his expression unreadable. Zivkar found his commander there. "The Confederation Council is requesting your report on the incident," he said. "These humans are strange," Gaxthor replied, ignoring the message. "They interrupt their duties to visit a dying comrade. In battle, focus must remain absolute." "The battle is over," Zivkar pointed out. "Perhaps this is their way." Inside the medical bay, Walsh's condition worsened despite Dr. Young's best efforts. The room's monitors showed his declining life signs. Captain Miller hadn't left his side for hours. "My daughters," Walsh said weakly. "You'll tell them." "I'll tell them you saved the ship," Miller promised. "I'll tell them you're a hero." Walsh shook his head slightly. "Tell them I love them. That's all that matters." His eyes closed, and the monitor's steady beep became a continuous tone. Dr. Young moved forward quickly, but after a moment, she stepped back, her head bowed. "Time of death, 21:43 hours, she said quietly. A heavy silence fell over the medical bay. Sergeant Gonzalez, who had been standing near the door, turned away, her shoulders tight. Lieutenant Clark placed a hand on Miller's shoulder. "He was a good man," Clark said simply. Miller nodded, unable to speak for a moment. When he finally stood, his face was composed but his eyes were red. Prepare for a space burial ceremony. Traditional honors. Word spread through the ship quickly. Within an hour, the Armstrong's observation deck was filled with crew members standing in formal rows. Walsh's body, wrapped in Earth's flag, rested on a platform before a launch tube. Captain Miller stood before his assembled crew, Confederation observers at the back of the room. Kaxthor and Zivkar had come at Miller's formal invitation. "We gather to honor engineer Peter Walsh," Miller began. "A man who put the lives of his crewmates above his own. A man who understood that true courage is not found in seeking battle, but in protecting others." Miller spoke of Walsh's 20 years of service, his 2 daughters waiting on Earth, his love of old books and his habit of singing off-key while he worked, the small farm where he had planned to retire someday. As Miller spoke, many crew members wiped away tears. Even Lieutenant Clark, always professional, struggled to maintain his composure. And then Kaxthor did something unthinkable. He laughed. It was a short, dismissive sound, but in the reverent silence of the ceremony, it echoed like thunder. Every human head turned toward him in shock and growing anger. "Direct hit," Clark called out. The third Nexari ship veered sharply, diving toward the Armstrong, with weapons powering up. "Evasive maneuvers," Miller ordered. The ship lurched as Engineer Walsh pushed the engines beyond their rated capacity. The Nexari vessel fired, grazing the Armstrong's hull. "Damage to Deck 6. Bennett reported. Engineering reports breach in Section 4. "That's Walsh's section," Gonzalez said, her voice tight. The Armstrong twisted again, bringing its weapons to bear. With another precise shot, Gonzalez disabled the third Nexari ship. "All hostile vessels neutralized," she reported. Miller was already headed for the elevator. "Clark, you have the bridge. Kaxthor, with me if you want to see how humans handle battle casualties." Kaxthor followed, his expression a mixture of anger and confusion. "You broke protocol. The larger ships should have engaged first." And while they were preparing their ceremonial attack formation, the Nexari would have escaped. Miller replied as they rushed toward engineering. "Sometimes victory requires breaking the rules." The U.S. Armstrong hung in space like a steel shark, smaller than the massive Confederation vessels surrounding it, but sleek and clearly built for speed. Inside the bridge, Captain Miller watched as Kaxthor examined each station with critical eyes. "Your weapon systems are primitive," the Krelaxian warrior said. "Kinetic rounds and chemical explosives. The Confederation abandoned such weapons 3 centuries ago. Yet they work quite well for us," Sergeant Maria Gonzalez said from her tactical station. She was compact and muscular, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. Kaxthor grunted. "Against lesser opponents, perhaps." Lieutenant Clark guided their alien observer toward engineering. "You might find our propulsion systems more impressive. Engineer Walsh has made some interesting modifications." The engine room hummed with energy as they entered. Peter Walsh looked up from a control panel, wiping grease from his hands. He was older than most of the crew, with gray streaks in his beard and laugh lines around his eyes. "Welcome to my domain," Walsh said with a friendly smile. "You must be the famous Commander Kaxthor. I've heard stories about your battle at Chorus Prime." Kaxthor seemed surprised by the recognition. "You know of this." "I study military history," Walsh explained. "Especially space combat tactics. Your maneuver to take out those 3 warships was brilliant." For the first time since coming aboard, Kaxthor's posture relaxed slightly. "You understand battle strategy, then?" "I understand keeping my ship in one piece," Walsh said, "and sometimes that means knowing when to fight and when to be creative." Before Kaxthor could respond, the ship's alarm blared. Captain Miller's voice came over the speaker. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Unidentified vessels approaching at high speed. Clark and Kaxthor rushed back to the bridge, while Walsh's fingers flew over his control panels, preparing the engines for potential combat maneuvers. Report, Miller commanded as they entered the bridge. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL travel, Gonzalez said. Configuration matches Nexari scout vessels. Gaxthor moved to Miller's side. Nexari, here, they would not dare attack a Confederation exercise. Unless they didn't know we were here, Clark suggested. This system is close to disputed territory. The main screen showed 3 arrow-shaped vessels approaching rapidly. Miller pressed his communication badge. All Confederation vessels. This is Captain Miller. We have spotted Nexari scouts. Request confirmation and instructions. The largest Confederation ship, the Galactic Protector, responded immediately. Captain Miller, hold position. Our capital ships will handle this threat. Miller looked at Gonzalez. Are they in weapon range? Yes, sir, but the Confederation protocol dictates larger vessels engage first. Gaxthor interrupted. Your ship should remain in defensive position. Miller ignored him. Specialist Bennett, any communications from the Nexari ships? Lisa Bennett, monitoring communications, shook her head. Nothing, Captain. They're running silent. The bridge crew watched as the massive Confederation vessels began slow, ceremonial turns to bring their weapons to bear. The Nexari ships, meanwhile, accelerated rapidly. They'll be past the response window in 30 seconds, Gonzalez warned. Miller made his decision. Gonzalez, target their propulsion systems. Clark, alert Dr. Yum to prepare for potential casualties. Walsh, he spoke into his communicator. I need everything you've got. Captain. Gaxthor's voice boomed. This violates Confederation battle protocol. Firing. Gonzalez announced calmly. The Armstrong shuddered as precise kinetic rounds shot toward the Nexari vessels. 2 hits landed perfectly, sending one scout spinning off course and damaging another's engines, and I look forward to seeing if humans can follow proper combat protocols, Gaxthor replied, or if you will resort to your creative solutions. Zivkar stepped closer to Bennett while the others talked. Your captain shows restraint. Most species avoid challenging my superior. We're not challenging him, Bennett said. We're just not backing down. To Gaxthor, that is the same thing, Zivkar explained. In our culture, deference to superior warriors is expected. Bennett made mental notes. On Earth, respect is earned through actions, not just reputation. Fascinating, Zivkar said. This may explain the cultural misalignment. Across the room, Miller was saying, we'll be bringing additional crew for the exercise. Our best tactical officer, Sergeant Maria Gonzalez, our lead engineer Peter Walsh, and our chief medical officer Olivia Young. Medical officer, Gaxthor scoffed. Krelaxian warriors need no medical attention during battle. We fight until victory or death. Let's hope for victory then, Miller said with a tight smile, and keep Dr. Young bored. Neither of them could know how wrong that hope would be. The diplomatic reception hall glowed with soft blue light from ceiling panels designed to be comfortable for most species' vision. Captain Miller stood with a drink of clear liquid that he hadn't touched. The humans had been at Confederation headquarters for 6 hours, and this welcome event was their first real chance to interact with the various alien representatives. Don't look now, but the big 4-armed fellow is staring at you again, Lieutenant Clark said quietly. Miller nodded without turning. Gaxthor. I've been reading this file. 300+ confirmed kills, decorated in 6 major conflicts, and apparently hasn't lost a direct combat in 20 years. Charming fellow, Clark said. Not a fan of humans, it seems. Lisa Bennett approached, accompanied by a small hovering alien with delicate translucent wings. Captain, Lieutenant, this is Ambassador Trill from the Ilisi Collective. They've been eager to meet Earth representatives. The Ilisi bobbed in what might have been a bow. Your species has caused quite a stir. Defeating the Nexari was impressive. Many believed it impossible. We're stubborn that way, Miller said with a small smile. The Nexari were careless, came a deep voice from behind them. Gaxthor approached with heavy steps, his yellow eyes fixed on Miller. They underestimated your capacity for underhanded tactics. The Elysi ambassador quickly excused themselves, floating away rapidly. Commander Gaxthor, Miller acknowledged. I wasn't aware that survival was underhanded. Survival without honor is merely existence, Gaxthor said. The Krelaxian way values direct combat. We face our enemies. We do not hide behind computer terminals and triggered explosions. Clark stepped forward. With respect, Commander, Earth's military traditions go back thousands of years. We value the lives of our people above rigid combat protocols. Gaxthor's upper lip curled back, revealing sharp teeth. Yes, I have studied your wars. Messy, chaotic affairs with no proper ritual or form. Lisa Bennett had been watching this exchange carefully, her eyes darting between the humans and the alien warrior. Her job was to document and understand alien psychology, and Gaxthor was providing fascinating material. Perhaps, she said carefully, there's room for both approaches in the Confederation. Different evolutionary paths lead to different combat strategies. A smaller Krelaxian approached, his skin a lighter shade of gray than Gaxthor's. He had only 2 visible weapons compared to the 6 Gaxthor carried. My superior sometimes forgets his diplomatic training, the newcomer said. I am Zivkar, aide to Commander Gaxthor and liaison officer. Miller nodded. Captain Frank Miller. This is Lieutenant Clark and Specialist Bennett. Zivkar's eyes lingered on Bennett with obvious curiosity. I have many questions about human culture, if permitted. Our files are incomplete. Before Bennett could respond, a chime sounded, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a star system with multiple planets and military vessels. Esteemed representatives, announced a voice, the Council has finalized details for the upcoming joint military exercises in the Ta-CD system. All member species will participate, including our newest members from Earth. Gaxthor's eyes narrowed. Your U.S. Armstrong will join the fleet exercises. Yes, Miller confirmed. Our newest dreadnought. Not as large as some Confederation vessels, but capable. I will be assigned as observer on your ship, Gaxthor announced, to assess human military readiness. Clark and Miller exchanged glances. Having the legendary warrior scrutinizing their every move wasn't part of their plan. We look forward to demonstrating Earth's approach to ship operations, Miller said diplomatically. Gaxthor leaned down, bringing his face closer to Miller's. We shall see, human. The Confederation has scheduled joint military exercises next lunar cycle. Your courage will be measured then. Veximi glided forward, inserting himself between the two. Captain Miller, please allow me to show you to your delegation's quarters. You must be tired after your journey. As the humans followed Veximi deeper into the complex, Gaxthor's aide Zivkar approached from the shadows where he had been observing. They are smaller than I expected, Zivkar said. Small, soft, and weak, Gaxthor replied. Yet they talk of courage. Zivkar's head tilted. They defeated the Nexari when many thought it impossible. Through computer manipulation and trickery, Gaxthor turned away. True warriors face their enemies directly, blade to blade, ship to ship. These humans will learn their place in the Confederation. I will personally ensure it. The vast central chamber of the Galactic Confederation headquarters buzzed with activity as diplomats from 17 species moved through the space like colorful fish in a cosmic pond. Standing a full head taller than most was Gaxthor. His 4 muscular arms crossed over his titanium-reinforced chest plates. The Krelaxian warrior's yellow eyes narrowed as he watched the main entrance. They arrived today, said Counselor Veximi, gliding to Gaxthor's side on levitation discs. Our newest members. Gaxthor made a rumbling sound deep in his throat that the universal translators didn't bother converting. It meant roughly the same thing in any language. Disgust. Humans, he finally said. Soft-skinned weaklings who defeated the Nexari through trickery and luck. Several nearby diplomats moved away quickly. No one argued with Gaxthor, not the warrior who had single-handedly destroyed 3 Drelkin warships during the Battle of Chorus Prime. Not the commander who had collected 327 confirmed kills during the Orion Wars. Not the legend whose battle prowess had earned him a seat as military advisor to the Confederation Council itself, despite his well-known disdain for politics. The Council has made its decision. Veximi reminded him gently. The humans proved themselves worthy of junior membership. Their victory over the Nexari invasion was impressive, regardless of methods. Gaxthor's upper right arm moved to the ceremonial blade at his hip. Impressive. They hacked navigation systems and sent Nexari ships crashing into each other. Where is the honor in that? Where is the warrior's glory? Before Veximi could respond, the giant entry doors slid open. A hush fell over the chamber as 3 humans entered, flanked by protocol droids. They looked impossibly small and fragile to most of the assembled aliens. Their pale skin lacked scales, plates, or protective ridges. Their limbs were only 2 to each side, with no redundancies or special adaptations visible. The lead human wore a dark blue uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Captain Frank Miller of Earth's United Navy announced the protocol droid, representing humanity as diplomatic and military liaison to the Confederation. Miller stood straight, his eyes taking in the gathered aliens without showing fear. Behind him stood a taller, broader man with short brown hair. Lieutenant Henry Clark, security and tactical advisor, continued the droid. The third human was female, with hair the color of Earth's setting sun tied back from her face. Communications specialist Lisa Bennett, Sinocultural relations, and linguistic support. Gaxthor stepped forward, causing several diplomats to scatter from his path. His heavy footfalls echoed through the suddenly quiet chamber. Protocol demanded that a senior military officer greet new military representatives. As military advisor, that duty fell to him. He towered over Captain Miller, nearly 9 feet of armored alien warrior staring down at less than 6 feet of human. Miller had to tilt his head back to meet Gaxthor's gaze. "Captain," Gaxthor said, his voice a low growl through the translators. "The Confederation welcomes Earth to its ranks, though some wonder how you will contribute to our collective strength when your species lacks natural advantages." Miller didn't blink. "We're resourceful. Indeed, resourceful enough to defeat the Nexari without proper combat." Lieutenant Clark shifted his weight slightly, a subtle movement that Gaxthor immediately recognized as a combat-ready stance. "Interesting. We defeated them," Miller replied calmly, "and saved millions of lives, including non-humans on our colony worlds." Lisa Bennett stepped forward. "The Nexari attacked our civilian populations first, Commander Gaxthor. We responded with the tools available to us." Gaxthor's upper shoulders twitched in what his species considered a dismissive shrug. "Tools, yes. Not strength, not courage. With respect," Miller said, though his tone suggested limited patience. "Courage comes in many forms. You'll find humans have plenty of it."